I think that he's still, maturing into that person. And I believe in Lando. But at a certain point, he's got to go, Max, you think I'm going to leave the door open and you can send the car. Well, actually, the door's closed, and if we crash, we crash. It almost needs to be one of those situations.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to Formula for Success. I'm David Coulthard, and joining me today is the man that's seen even more F1 crashes than I've been involved in. It's Eddie Jordan.
Indeed I have. Ah, DC, I'm still here.
Shall we talk about the last Grand Prix? So this is the week after Austin, and very unusual for me to be on the sofa watching the race, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. There was so much action. And what another Hollywood ending that we're getting, in that Ferrari get the first 1-2 finished together since Indianapolis in 2006, when it was Michael Schumacher and Felipe Massa. And they were it was clear right from the beginning they were hot. And it all started with what was a fairly poor defense of turn one from Lando, because you give Max a car's width. What's he going to do? He's going to stick his car in there. It's, the same that Senna would do. It's the same that Schumacher would do, and all of the other greats. So I don't offend anyone who goes, well, why didn't you mention him? It was always going to be the case. So let's start right at the beginning. Lando is the real deal. He's brilliant, heart on sleeve. You're his team principal in Fantasyland. What would you say to him now that he's just had so many first lap not working out situations? Because I would be saying, right, let them pass you around the outside for a change, because all this, them coming down the inside, we've seen that. We've seen the script.
What you mustn't do is build in a pressure. He's in a position, starting from pole, that I've never been in. You have. You know what you've done. Yes, maybe I did it in the junior formula, so I'd understand what I do. And I was pretty violent. And by that, I mean...
Oh, really?
I took up...
Apparently you had little spikes coming out of your race car like Ben-Hur.
I was brutal. I took a middle of the road stance, and anyone who made a move, left or right. But that was before the two changed rules. And so that's where you went to. But, it's different now. So let's not go into the old days and the new days and the whatever. Lando Norris has been brought up by an amazing, lovely, beautiful, caring family. And is there an argument to say that he's too nice? Yes, possibly. Does that make you a great driver? No. Yes. It doesn't matter. The fact is that Lando Norris will go down in the history books as being one of the most incredibly fastest drivers, possibly not to have won a world championship. And the reason being, he should have been out of sight on several of the races this year, where, there is not a chance Max had the car that he had. And we saw Carlos and we saw Charles, all effectively there working on behalf of Max by the championship, and how they're taking points away from Lando. So there you go. Lando has made it possible to put himself in that position, but can he win the championship from there? It's still 5 races to go, still a lot to fight for. It's the most exciting championship you're ever going to find. But my guess is at the moment, going to take a hell of a task for Lando to wrestle this one from Max.
Right, well, that's all fine and well, but I think you're potentially, and I know you weren't saying he'll never be a world champion, but you're throwing out there that he might not have all the ingredients to win a world championship going toe-to-toe with the likes of a Max. But I actually take the view that McLaren entered this year as part of their rebuilding, working their way towards, challenging for world championships. And it came as a bit of a surprise to them when they were in that position. And it's taken them a little while to adapt and really believe that they can win the Constructors' Championship and they could win the Drivers' Championship. And I think they are almost there in their mind, where they've got that attacking mentality that I believe that they've had in the past, and they're certainly getting there now. But I think that maybe Lando's the same. He's still maturing into this complete Grand Prix driver. He's got all the speeds. We love how open he is. Everything is there. But a little bit like when Nico was wheel to wheel with Lewis Hamilton, 9 times out of 10, Lewis would come out on top. Not all the time. And in fairness to Nico, he won a world championship. So I think that he's still, maturing into that person. And I believe in Lando. But at a certain point, he's got to go, Max, you think I'm going to leave the door open and you can send the car. Well, actually, the door's closed, and if we crash, we crash. It almost needs to be one of those situations.
Yeah.
Because you race different drivers in a different way. I knew Mika was a very fair, let's say, and if I sent the car, he would create space because he didn't want us to crash out together. Whereas someone like a Michael, you knew you only sent the car if you truly believed you could get the pass done without contact. Otherwise, there would be contact. So you approach different drivers in different ways. So I think Lando is just that one step away from fully understanding how to race his competitors. And Max's defense of the Grand Prix was world champion. It was
Brilliant.
Robust and controversial, once again, in as much that there was a number of penalties that were handed out over the course of the weekend. If we start with the first corner where, Max went off the circuit, there's a general rule or understanding, if it's not a hard-written rule, that the first corner, track limits, that sort of thing will not be penalised, because I think quite sensibly, the stewards go, well, you've got 20 cars barreling into a corner, you've got to do what you can do to avoid incidents. The downside of that, of course, is drivers will exploit that, and that's where there's the grey area. So it gets exploited where you can send it, go wide, maintain your position, and it's not going to be penalised. The only way to solve that is you have gravel on the exit of the first corner, because no one's going to want to knowingly drive into the gravel.
Yeah.
Nobody does, tries to send it round the outside into Saint-Devote and Monaco because there's a barrier there. And I've mentioned in previous podcasts, not that I always saw eye to eye with Eddie Irvine, but whenever we were sitting there debating with Charlie Whiting track limits, Eddie would get frustrated and go, put a metal barrier there. No one will go wide if there's a barrier to hit. And then, of course, we go, oh, we can't have a barrier, it's dangerous. Well, you know what? Life is dangerous. We all die in the end. And none of these drivers are forced to be Grand Prix drivers. So I think that there has to be a sensible approach to risk versus return versus entertainment. If we move it on, EJ,
let's move on.
The controversy later in the race where Lando was given a 5-second penalty. My position was that whoever is ahead at what I define as the apex has the right to control the corner. And if I put myself on the outside of Michael, right, what do I think is going to happen? If I'm slightly behind and I put myself on the outside, he's going to push me off the track. Of course he is. That's exactly what Max is going to do. The fact that Max then ran a little bit beyond the white line, actually the point at which you are when you arrive at the apex is what defines it. In the case of George, who was given the penalty, he was behind as they went through the apex and then took a wider line which forced the other car wide. So that's why he was given the penalty. So for me, it's absolutely clear. And I think that McLaren made a mistake in not saying to Lando, give the place back, pass him somewhere else, because he had the pace to do it.
Yeah.
And then complaining afterwards, oh, there's rules for one, there's rules for another. Join a long line of people who complain and make excuses. You count the winners by the checkered flag, assuming there's no penalties afterwards. So I think it was a brilliant bit of aggressive, strategic understanding of the rules by Max, and it was a slightly naive position from McLaren. And Lando on the in-lap, I believe, and I can't say word for word, maybe you remember, kind of asked, why didn't we give the place back? He was in the car present, but he was at the moment, trusting in what the team were saying and trusting in the fact that they'd both gone off, so therefore he should be able to keep the position. But of course, he doesn't know the relative placing of the cars as they ran through the apex. So therefore, I think the debate is over on that one. But EJ, I wouldn't be surprised if you see it in a completely different way.
Look, I think we should move on. We've just far too much talk been about this. And I agree that the stewards had a good hold of the situation. They did what they did. It shows me, beyond any doubt, that the quality of Max Verstappen as a hardcore chiseler from the inner cities, who is tough, brought up by a tough racing father. That's what world champions do. You know, come on, David, you were too nice. You were too nice. Mika had you by the balls. He knew exactly how to get to you. And the reality is, the likes of Michael Schumacher and the likes of, what do you call it, this guy, that guy, the other guy, doesn't matter. They win world titles because that business is in their locker. They have it, they know what to do with it, and they will exploit it to the last limits. That's my opinion, not going to change. And so that's why Formula One is so exciting in many respects.
Amazingly, Max has not won a Grand Prix in the last 9 races, but he did, after the weekend, manage to eke out his points lead to 57 points. There's 5 races left. So I guess the crystal ball moment is, can he hold on? Because it does seem that McLaren, although he did win the sprint, it does seem that McLaren still have a pace advantage. Ferrari, the upgrade was working certainly in America. We'll find out whether that carries into Mexico, a circuit that Max has been very strong at in the past. It's a fascinating run towards the drivers and the constructors, because we've got Ferrari are only, what are they?
Well within reach, David. Well within reach. Well within reach. Everybody's inclined to trip up or forget about Ferrari because they trip themselves up so regularly, so awesomely. And so I would put Ferrari to one side. Now, back to Max, and let's move on, because for me, we cannot possibly move on without talking about Lawson, Carlo Pinto. God, there's such an array of amazing young kids coming through.
Let's very quickly sort of run through each of those. First of all, Liam Lawson. Brilliant, back of the grid, picking up points, exactly what the team would have wanted. I think Daniel Ricciardo scored points a couple of races so far in the season. So everything was in place to sort of justify the removal of Daniel, putting Liam in the car. He had a bit of a elbows out moment with Fernando Alonso, where Fernando apparently was quoted as saying it's his career at stake, not mine.
I love that. Don't you like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And Liam also mentioned that Fernando had told him that he would screw him after the incident they had together in the sprint race. So I would take that as a sort of compliment, a badge of honor compliment, that somebody as experienced and feisty as Fernando is feeling that he needs to sort of chastise him.
It was great racing. Listen, we're being served up with such classics at the moment, David. How can these superlatives, where are they going to stop? Because they can't keep coming. It's amazing. I love it. I'm absolutely in love with what's going on.
Yeah, me too. No, it's fantastic. So, right, we've touched on Liam. Brilliant debut.
Sorry,
again.
I've got to ask you a question. You're Liam's manager and you've come off the fence and you say to yourself, look, we need to work quick here on this because we need to do that, and that. Where do you place him up? Where do you try to place him up? What is in your mindset, or how do you do it?
Well, Red Bull had an option date that they had to take up the option, otherwise he became a free agent. They've taken up that option, which I don't know the terms of his contract, but they now have him under contract and can observe how he finishes this year. And if he continues to score points and he continues to go wheel to wheel, or ideally in front of Tsunoda, then he's got to be looked at as a Checo replacement at Red Bull Racing. Checo, well, we had George Russell started in the pit lane and finished in front of Checo. That's again another sobering performance. The results are just not close to where Max is. So we've got to imagine that Red Bull will be looking at Liam's performance, and if he delivers, then maybe he's at Red Bull Racing.
George Russell. George Russell started off the year as the absolute darling in Toto's mind. And he's created this mystique, and we love George, and we want him to be up there at the front, hopefully fighting for a world championship. And that's not going to happen because the car is not good enough, number one. However, all of Toto's interest seems to have gone somewhere else. That's the problem here.
George has done exactly what they would have dreamed of, which is they've come in, they've matched, and then surpassed Lewis in qualifying speed.
Absolutely.
They didn't expect Lewis to go, but he has. And it's actually probably helped what would be a problem for them, because if Lewis is now in the declining years of his career in terms of single lap pace, and I can imagine the people that are going with the hatred towards me, going, "How dare you suggest such a thing?" But here's the thing, people: the facts don't lie. That Lewis seems to be struggling to understand this car or get the best out of this car. The greats drive the wheels off every car they're in. That's what the greats have done. When Michael came back to Mercedes after his short retirement, he was still Michael. He was still an exceptional driver. He got pole position in Monaco, but he was outperformed by Nico and then eventually retired. Michael had never been outperformed by a teammate before. So Lewis is being outperformed right now in pace by George. He's going off to Ferrari. I don't doubt that will revamp, re-energize. But as you know, Eddie, as someone slightly older than me, you can kind of control the aging process by good decisions, but you can't stop it. It's nature beyond our control. And he's going to have a big challenge with Charles, who just won the Grand Prix in America brilliantly. So with Kimi Antonelli, I think he'll be in a brilliant position to learn from George, but I don't expect him to challenge George over the course of his first full season in Formula One. And then whether he does that in his second season will define whether he goes on to be one of the greats or not. So there's a lot of really interesting things going on right now. A very rare mistake from Lewis. Same corner that George had gone off in qualifying. It can happen. He's human. They're on the edge of adhesion. But it felt like it's kind of compounding a very slow, painful exit from what was a beautiful marriage with Mercedes.
Okay, David, very quickly, a yes or no answer. Ferrari made a mistake in signing him?
Financially, no.
That's not a yes or a no. Yes.
They're not getting the Lewis Hamilton that has won 7 world titles. Okay,
so move on. So the answer to that is yes, I agree. I think they now, on reflection of the season, they've made a mistake. Toto. I just think that he believes that Kimi is the answer to all his prayers. That's what I believe, and I don't think we need to go much further on than that.
Well, okay, we'll move on. Here's what I believe. I think that he didn't expect to have to bring Antonelli in this early. It's a good solution, given that Lewis is going off to Ferrari, and he's in a very strong position because George has got speed, and no doubt that when they get on top of the car, George will be there winning Grand Prix. And I don't doubt, that Kimi has a load of potential, but I don't think he'll beat George in his first season. And then we'll judge him in the second season when he's got a bit more maturity and experience, because you can't put an old head on young shoulders.
Move on. Now, what's your next subject? I hear exactly.
Okay. Shall we talk about the winner of the Grand Prix and
do we have
his teammate? Yeah, what an amazing performance from Charles Leclerc. There's moments, you never doubt his speed, his qualifying speed. But there's moments in races where there's the odd little mistake, and then you just think, when it's starting to look like he's building momentum, then he drops the ball. But that was a flawless, beautiful performance. And Carlos was hot to trot all weekend as well. And we know he's heading off to Williams. But what a brilliant story for Formula One, and what a tremendous drive from both of them.
What a great story for Ferrari. They need it. Formula One needs Ferrari. We need to see more of that. That's why the weekend was so electric and so mind-boggling. And I think if we can get more races like that, then the whole entire universe will be plugged into a Sunday afternoon Grand Prix.
So great performance from Ferrari. That was super impressive. Colapinto, does he deserve to be in the Sauber seat or the Audi seat alongside Nico Hülkenberg? Because there isn't clearly a seat at Williams. I'm going to assume that Alex Albon's on a multi-year. I'm going to assume that Carlos is on a multi-year. So it wouldn't be particularly good to have someone of that talent sitting on the sidelines as a highly qualified, fast reserve driver. So do they have does he have the opportunity to go to Sauber Audi? And would you sign him?
He's such high class, but have we seen enough? Do I think he's fast enough? Beyond any doubt, yes. And would I sign him? Yes, I would sign him.
Okay. Well, it seems to me that the option is someone like a Bottas who's there and is a former Grand Prix winner, or you go for that sort of youth play. So I, much as I like Valtteri, if I had the choice between him and Colapinto, you've got to say that Colapinto has come in and really said to the world, I'm made for Formula One, and therefore he represents the future, and therefore I would put him in the car as well. And that's the only seat that's left in Formula One. So we will find out in time, EJ.
Perfect. Move on.
Yes, let's move on. Well, we're going to move on to the next Grand Prix in Mexico. So great city. Definitely recommend it to our listeners if you're looking for a race to head to. So much colour and excitement. It's won Best Grand Prix on several occasions. The last 5 Mexico Grand Prix winners, 2018 Max Verstappen, 19 Lewis Hamilton, and then 21 through till last year was Max. So it's been a good track for Red Bull. It's altitude, so power play is less of an issue. You get a bit less downforce. It's not a meaty, challenging track like a Spa or Austin, but it clearly is a track that has suited Red Bull in the past. So what would be your gut feeling? This is the upgrade war at the end of the season. I think it's too close to call personally as to who's going to have the advantage there. But the safe money would say McLaren, based on most recent performance, would be the ones you'd expect to set the pace. But it has been very kind to Red Bull in the past, so I'd expect them to be in the mix.
Everything you've said about the city, my God, it's wild, isn't it? It's wild. It's all the colour, it's the vibe, it's got its own music, it's got everything about it is magic. And
it is. It's a magical Grand Prix. It's a big weekend for Checo Perez off what was, again, another, let's say, average performance in Austin. If the crowd can't will him into a sort of more competitive position, remember last year,
they walked out.
There was that contact at the first corner, and what looked like it was so good just didn't quite work out. So he was very clear in Austin that he's here, he's got a contract, he'll be racing for Red Bull Racing next year. But it just feels like, can the team at that level of performance continue to accept it?
They screwed up.
It's a big weekend for him.
His time ran out. In life, sometimes you put milk in the fridge, it goes sour, doesn't it? It goes sour.
Okay, before we wrap things up for today, I want to give an honourable mention to the anchors that got involved in our Ultimate F1 Driver Challenge a few weeks back. If you missed it, myself and Alex Jakes spent on a whole episode going through various different attributes like speed, overtaking, and mental strength, and picking the best drivers for each category to create the ultimate F1 driver. It's a great episode, in my opinion, so go listen back to it. Then you guys got involved on the F1 for Success Instagram. At Luke39 had a great list, lots of Schumacher in there. At Kirsty Elliott 14 agreed with myself and Alex that Lauda had peak mental strength. At Curtis_Swan agreed with me that James Hunt had the biggest and best personality out of all the Formula One drivers, past and present. So thanks for getting involved. So, right, anchors, that's all we have time for today. We'll be back next week to review the Mexican Grand Prix and to preview the Brazilian Grand Prix. However, earlier this week, we released another Answer the Anchors bonus episode where EJ and me answer your F1-related questions. Join the FFS Club now and become a massive anchor to get access to all the Answer the Anchors bonus episodes, ad-free listening, and your chance to join one of our future podcast recordings. Just head to ffs.supportingcast.fm to sign up now. Remember, you can get in touch with us on social media at F1 for Success and send your questions in to ffs@whisper.tv. God, that's quite difficult for me to say. I'm off, EJ, to lie down. Bye for now.
Enjoy your snooze.